So, Meredith, thank you very much. So, here it is. So, my name is Greg Boland, and I'm one of the Association Grove Farm. We're also employee-owned. All of my employees have stock in the farm. I followed a model that I learned in technology. My background is a venture capitalist, and I thought it was important, particularly in agriculture, for my employees to have buy-in. And so all my employees are farmers, and I think you'll see the difference today, because this farm is literally being transformed from what it was, a tired dairy farm that was no longer profitable, that couldn't be sustained, into a farm that we believe will be very impactful, not only in the world, but in people's health and lives. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here. I'm going to give you one or two things to take home. The first is Occam's razor. Does everybody know what Occam's razor is?
Yep.
Occam's razor says the simplest answer is often the best, or often the correct answer. And in our world today, people are spending billions of dollars trying to find a solution to carbon sequestration and to health. And the answer for both lies under our feet. And if we treat the soil with respect, and we do what needs to be done to keep it covered and to keep it alive, we're going to solve both the carbon sequestration issue, global warming, and we're going to solve the nutritional issues of the Americans. Because we aren't getting enough nutrition in our food. So we eat more of it all the time to try and get the nutrition that our body needs to catalyze and perform. Here is one of the lessons that I've learned in the last couple of years. The number one predictor of nutritional density and quality of food is the biologic activity that occurred underneath the soil where it was grown and produced. And we can solve so many of our problems in the world today by going back and farming the way that farming really can be, which is life-giving. So, again, Meredith, thank you very much. This wouldn't exist without you. This conference today, you literally can't believe the transformation in this place over the last couple of months. And Meredith has been the driver of all of this. So, thank you very much.
Well, I always say to everybody, teamwork makes the dream work. So I love to take all the credit, but I cannot. Everybody's participated. So we're so excited. You all chose to come to Union Grove Farm today. I'm going to quickly go through this because it looks like a lot, but we're going to go fast because we know you guys have been at conferences and we're going to get you out on the farm. So we heard from Greg. Next up, we're going to hear from Cassidy. She's going to talk about CFSA. Then we get to hear from Amy Brooks. She is from our sponsor, Brooks Contractor. Then we're going to hear from our team. So Laura Kavanaugh's going to speak, and Martin Compton. We're going to talk about regenerative farming. We're going to talk about the future of farming and profitability. We've got a lot of great things to share, and then we are going to pan it out. And we have 2 vehicles out there, and we'll jump out and we'll split up, and we'll do that towards the end of the session. But just to say, we're going to split up, and then one will go to the vertical compost and the compost, and the other will go out to the vineyard and out to see our sheep and our livestock. And then we'll switch at the break, and then after that we'll let you all know. But hopefully in the meantime we'll have a great time. I just want you to see this team. So Martin's going to take half of you with Dane and Colin, and then Laura will take the other half. So anyway, just so you see who you're looking at today. So thanks again, and thanks for all the credit, but I don't deserve all the credit. And let's now hear from she's from CFSA. They've done a great job.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone had a great time at SAC this weekend and was able to network and get some valuable information moving forward to set you all up for success in your own endeavors, whether that be a small local farm or a medium-sized farm as well. I'm the local produce safety coordinator with CFSA. So essentially that means I travel around to different farms in the upstate South Carolina region and western North Carolina region, and essentially am a consultant for anyone that is interested in getting GAP certified. What we do is we provide many templates, food safety plans for you if you're interested in going through that audit process and getting your farm GAP certified. We also just provide a lot of resources for you if you're just interested in increasing your food safety awareness at your farm, because food safety is really the pinnacle of your operation. Nobody wants to get sick, and you want to be able to operate efficiently and make sure that your product is safe for your consumer. I'm with CFSA as well as Sonia in the back. If you have any questions about wanting to join or just want to talk more, swing by and see us. And now I want to turn it over to Amy Fulford, who is the sponsor of this session with Brooks Contracting. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I feel the energy in this room is a lot of really amazing, smart people here. So I'm so glad that you guys are here. We've supported CFSA for a long time. Back several years ago, we found out that a lot of our farmers were actually ordering a load of compost for workshops like this so that they could show people what they were using for soil fertility on their farm. I want to use the majority of the time that I have up here to talk about the different types of compost that we have. These guys are going to hang around here probably until 10:30 or so, whenever I have to leave to go to another farm. So if you've got any questions or anything, I've got cards with me. Feel free to reach out. Primarily, the compost that we sell is made up of a lot of food waste, wood chips, leaves, and eggshells. Eggshells are actually a huge part of the waste stream of agriculture in North Carolina. Poultry industry is huge. If you've ever bought chicks or eggs or ate chicken, you've probably received the waste from that whole process from a lot of large hatcheries. And so we get in huge truckloads every single day of this product. And that's actually what started as composting in North Carolina back in the early 90s, was the fact that this was a waste product from agriculture that needed to be used and just being tossed in landfill. And so pretty much our entire facility over the years has revolved around how to handle this huge waste stream of eggshells and make it into a product that, you know, a lot of farmers can add to their soil and improves everything. So if you're just typically planting, you've got really poor soil. Poor soil I would define as not really being able to stick shoveling it too far. You know, if you can only do that a few inches, you're likely dealing with some really tough clay in North Carolina. We're from southwest Chatham County and Goldston. It's along the Lee and Moore County line along the Deep River. And the type of soil that we have is a silty clay. It's extremely shallow and it's rocky at the surface. So not your typical huge, deep profile in the Midwest or even up north. We do get a lot of customers that come to North Carolina to farm of the country, and they get here and they're like, where's your soil? Mostly what we have to work with, is subsoil. And so by adding compost, all you're doing is addressing that soil profile. Because if you have a tiny organic matter layer at the very top, and then you've got subsoil, what you wanna make is really good topsoil. You can do that by continuously adding organic matter at the surface. Mulch will work for sure. If you add compost, you can add a lot more fertility, to your soil. So the first thing we've got up here is our regular, eggshell compost. If you call me to order a load of compost and you don't specify what you're doing with it, this is probably what you're gonna get. This is our regular BR1 compost with eggshells. If you wanted to compare it to a bag of fertilizer, you're looking at something along the lines of like a 1.4, 0.3, something like that. So not a ton of nitrogen, but actually nitrogen can promote a lot of problems in the soil system, excess nitrogen anyway. So using a fertility method like compost with a lower nitrogen content actually works. This would be great to till into the soil if you're going to prepare beds for planting, particularly when you want to plant perennials or something like that on your property, and you have a poor soil. Getting a truckload of compost in is going to save you a lot of time and effort into building that soil up. So I would strongly recommend it for that. Top dressing on pastures is a great use for this product as well. If you have an extremely poor pasture and you're trying to plant something into it, or really pour anything that you're trying to plant, usually adding in compost to the system will really increase your germination rate as well as long-term survival of that crop. So that's our first compost. A lot of farmers that have been using our compost over the years, you know, they've added a lot of calcium to their soil. So if you're wary of adding any more excess calcium to your soil, all of that eggshell is going to slowly chip away over decades to release that calcium. So it looks a lot worse on paper than it is in reality in nature. But we do have a non-eggshell compost. We've got just a handful of farmers who use our compost, a lot of it over the years. The next thing, if you are certified organic, I really only have one compost for you right now. That may change just depending on NOV rules over the years. But with the food waste that we take in, we've taken a lot of plates and cups and post-consumer waste and things like that, and that is not allowable for certified organic production right now. They are talking about that at the level that, you know, they could make that rule change. So we'll see what happens over the next year. If that happens, probably all of our compost will be Commerce certified, so that would be definitely a good thing. It is lower in fertility. It's primarily a leaf-based compost with whatever clean produce that I can get in there. So usually something from like a distribution center or food bank or something like that, which does all produce. These are all composts that I would say you would need to add to the soil for fertility reasons, top dressing, working it into the soil. If you're trying to plant more of like a market garden style where it's a deep compost mulch system, I do have one compost I would recommend for that. After talking to so many farmers over the years and never using our regular BR1 compost with eggshells to really lay out like a thick 5-6 inch layer of compost to plant directly into, it's probably not the best thing to really get that system started. This is a blend of half of the leaf-based compost, or if you can find compost, and the non-eggshell compost. So it's a little better to add minerals and all sorts of things to that. The nitrogen is going to be pretty low on that, so you need to add something like alfalfa meal or another nitrogen source. If you have no soil to work with and you need some good soil, we also make a blend that's roughly half of our eggshell compost and a quarter sand, quarter clay, so it ends up being a sandy loam soil that you can plant directly into. A lot of people that are starting their high tunnels with soil that's just, subsoil. A lot of times they'll come in with a pretty thick layer of this and get it started. Also working on a potting soil, that will be North Carolina based. That will probably be available in the spring to farmers. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me. I think that's pretty much all that I wanted to talk about. If I've got any questions, be more than happy to answer them. But I'll hang around for a little bit, if you guys wanna catch me. Okay? Thank you. Good?
Awesome. No problem. Alright, well, super exciting to have you here. I love to get together with other regenerative farmers. It's super energizing. It's exciting to share ideas. I wanna give you a little background about the farm today. So we're growing a very unique seedless muscadine. If you're from the area, you may have had the muscadine grape. It's very native to the southeast, and it's a delicious, amazing grape, but it usually has a giant seed and a big thick skin. But somebody amazing that actually lives here in Hillsborough spent over 40 years breeding it to make a seedless variety, and it is delicious. And so that's what we're growing here on this farm. It is a table grape. So anytime people hear a vineyard, they usually think we're making wine. We're not making wine, we're making a table grape. And you're gonna hear some exciting things from Martin later about how healthy that is, both because of its inherent health, but also because we're raising it in this regenerative way. So, this farm is, as Greg mentioned, we've taken over a former dairy farm. This farm for over 60 years as a dairy, and the owners were very excited to sell that into a place where it would stay in agriculture and produce really cool stuff in regenerative farming. We have multiple properties, but you're gonna be just on this one called Maple View, and it's about 250 acres. It looks like this. There's all kinds of different properties to get yourself oriented. We are currently at the Regenerative Ag Center. But while you go out on this, we're gonna get out of here and stop talking and go out on the tour, you'll see some really cool things. We planted 15 acres of grapes last year, and you'll go by and see what those look like now after a year, and there's some really cool experimentation going on with some light chambers and things, and that'll be explained while you're out there. We're in the process of planting an additional 50 acres this year, and you'll see a lot of the new trellises going up part of your tour. And then we also have sheep grazing here, and that's all part of our soil health program. And you can learn about what we're doing with that on your tour. That'll all be with Martin and Colin. But then I'm gonna take half the team over to see the vermicompost lab. I'll show you a lot of what we're doing in the vermicompost, and we make a lot of extracts. I'll be explaining all of those things. We also have a large compost area, and so we'll show you what we're up to over there as well. And finally, you should definitely stop by the ice cream shop after this whole thing is over. It opens at noon, so the time is perfect. It's the best ice cream in the country, I think. Maple View ice cream right across the street over there. So make sure you do that. So I want to just pause for a moment. I know you've been at a regenerative farming conference, so I know I'm speaking to people who are very well versed in what exactly is regenerative farming. But to me, regenerative farming is all about the microbes. So as farmers, we sometimes think we have to come in and create the soil that's going to grow well. But nature's actually already figured this out. And nature has already built this amazing, resilient, incredibly productive system where plants and microbes in the soil interact to optimize plant nutrients, optimize plant ability to fight off disease and pests, and also create soils that stay together, are held together, and don't erode, and also that hold water. So this system is incredibly complex. When I look across a field, I don't just see like dirt. I see a universe of amazing interactions happening between the plants and the microbes. And that's what regenerative farming is all about. this isn't a picture, and you may have seen it, but I love this picture. This really shows us, this is a fungal species that's interacting with a tiny little vine tree. And normally, when I look out at trees and things, I think all the action is on top of the surface, because that's what I see. But in fact, there's this even more complex and amazing system underneath the ground, and this really highlights it. And you can see this little tiny pine tree, its roots are, it's hard to see, I see it in this picture, but they're little brown parts. This arbuscular fungi, mycorrhizal fungi, is like 10,000 times able to get more water and more nutrients. It has enzymes that it can extract nutrients from the soil that the plant cannot. In many ways, it's like the microbiome in our own bodies that can do a lot of functions that the human body cannot. We exchange nutrients. So this is an amazing system. I will mention it's also excellent for carbon sequestration, which is a huge conversation going on today. And in our modern farming practices, not because we had some evil intent, but we unwittingly did a lot of things that broke this system, that hit the microbes by killing, especially fungal species are very vulnerable to being killed and destroyed. Excessive use of fertilizers, because then the plant and the microbes don't need to barter anymore. The plant thinks it has everything it needs, so it's not setting up these relationships with the microbes. And then when that fertilizer leaches out, because we don't have the microbes in the soil to hold water and nutrients, the plant's kind of left in the lurch, and then we keep adding more and more supplements to compensate for what we've actually removed from the system. So leaving the soil fallow, the misunderstanding that that's going to retain water in the soil, which it actually does not do as well as keeping cover crops and other things. And then our focus on monocropping, which again, it's all about diversity and adversity to get this exchange. The more types of plants, the more types of microbes, the better the system will operate. So this is what's been happening. And so I've learned this now over the years, and we're seeing impact. So now we're going back to reestablishing what nature actually figured out over millions of years to be an incredibly efficient and resilient system. And you've probably heard a lot about the 5 core principles of regenerative farming. So you're minimizing disturbance, keeping diversity in your crops, keeping the soil covered, the grazing of the animals and the live roots in the soil. That's actually, all of these are about keeping the microbes in the soil healthy. It's keeping the microbes alive. So it's not as complicated if you're trying to think, well, gosh, it's all these different things. It's actually not. It's just keeping the microbes in the soil alive so that they can do their job as the farm progresses. So here at Union Grove Farm, you can see a lot of cool things. It's exciting because we have a lot of resources and implement a lot of these different regenerative farming principles. So you'll see a lot of cover cropping going on. You'll see the sheep, which is really fun and exciting, and how they help the soil microbes. And then you'll see a lot in our vineyard. We do a lot of covering cropping in the vine, between the vine rows, but we're very interested in researching and developing cover crops within the vine rows themselves. So that's the way we would like to optimize our system. And all of these practices over time restore the soil. But we also do things to supplement that and speed it up, and that's a lot through compost, a lot of what Amy was talking about here, but we do a lot of that here on the farm itself, and we make a lot of extracts, which you get to see as you go on your tour. And I'll just say, compost is a really powerful tool to enhance microbial life in the soil. If you look at this pile of compost, most people will just see like a piece of dirt, they'll call it dirt, and it's like whatever, it's just trash. But if you look at it, you'll see inside that there's more microbes in there than there are stars in the galaxy. There's a universe in every pile of compost and hopefully soil, and improve our soil. So compost can be a super powerful tool for us as regenerative farmers. We'll be showing you a lot of what we're doing. The vermicompost in particular is very high in microbial life and enzymes that support plant life. But we have other systems as well. We're doing experiments with Johnson Sioux composting to optimize our fungal species, which vines in particular really love. But we're doing a lot of composting, so you'll see some compost down in windrows today. I'll show you some aerated static beds. And you can see in this picture in that slide, it's a little hard to see, but as we turn our compost with our windrow turner, we're also spraying our extracts in there, our vermicompost extracts. So we're spraying microbes into our compost and turning it at the same time. So we're leveraging a lot of our different components. This is myself and Martin out on the tractor and doing sprays on our vines to get microbes, but also nutrients. Plants absorb nutrients really well through their foliar sprays. So we do a lot of that work here. And something that's very visionary, and Greg's a visionary who built this whole vineyard, but I'm very interested in DNA sequencing because it's hard to know what you're doing if you can't see it. The microbes are so tiny, and we don't know whether what we're doing is helpful or not. So I'm doing a lot of DNA sequencing of composting. We started doing that here at the farm to look at how our different treatments actually impact the life in the soil and measuring it through DNA sequencing. So it's exciting times because there's some new technologies that make this very mobile, make it cost effective. And so we're exploring that here, and I really look forward to bringing that into the regenerative world with Union Grove Farm. It's just really awesome example of how to leverage that. I will offer advice to you from my experience in regenerative farming. First, start small and let your knowledge grow. I personally can feel very overwhelmed by regenerative farming. There's like, do this, try this, all these systems, and they're super interesting. Just don't get overwhelmed. Just take it one bite at a time. I like to say you can't eat the elephant all at once. Come into this conference, a perfect way to start talking to people. There's great webinars. There's a person named John Kemp. If you haven't heard of him, he's extremely knowledgeable and he does a lot of great webinars for free. So check into those. You can take online courses. Understanding Ag, Dave Brown's a huge advocate for regenerative farming. He has classes. That's a great web. Soil, it's a great source. And Soil Food Web by Elaine Ingham is also an opportunity that you can learn at home. Super interesting. Create your own regen community. Like I said, I get very energized by talking to people who are interested in regen. So build that. Being here is perfect. Conference farm, demo days, and especially this center for regenerative ag. We are building this center to serve as a nucleus for regenerative ag in this community. And we will be hosting workshops, farm days, different things. If you have an event that you want to do, this is a perfect place. So contact Meredith. Say, hey, we want to do something here. We want to bring it together. This is the awesome place. And I'll close by letting you know we have an event planned in December. It's the North Carolina Soil Health Coalition. So if you want to participate in that, that'd be a cool place. You can go online, get your tickets, and participate here. It'll be at this location, so you already know how to find it. So we're excited to host you today, and here's some books and references I would suggest that I think are really excellent. So I'll pass it on to Crompton. Thanks for coming today.
Okay, so, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, farmers. I'm going to ask a question. So there's a awesome next question. Who's an organic farmer? Hands up. Conventional farmer? Regenerative farmer? Wow, look at this. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good to see. Good to see. Right, I'm just going to, again, what we said today, the key to today, you've had 2 days of a conference with a lot of workshops. So these are just short intros to who we are and what we do, and then the most important thing is getting you out into the field so you can see what this looks like in action.
I see.
Okay, so we term it, and this is something Greg touched upon at the start. We feel that regenerative agriculture is the future of healthy and farming. But at the moment, this is
now suffering the consequences of that. There's an opportunity with regenerative, whether it's regenerative on its own or regenerative organic, to address the balance of both the healthful nature of how we farm, from an environmental perspective, from a people perspective, from a workforce perspective, and don't forget the good old farmer, because we've had some struggles farming in the last few years as well. But ultimately, it will lead to healthy crops, as well as a healthy environment and healthy people, or healthy end consumers. What's the state of play as far as North Carolina is concerned? Well, at the moment, and we've had meetings all the way up to Steve Troxler, who's the NC Commissioner for Agriculture in the state. We deal a lot with the Extension Service, who've been very, very supportive of the farmers in this state, and with NC State as a university as well. And as it stands at the moment, there's not an awful lot of knowledge or know-how behind regenerative farming. So these amazing bodies that support agriculture in this state really have an opportunity in the years ahead to wake up to the fact that regenerative farming is an opportunity to do the things I said at the start. And it's starting to appear. So this is Cal, the NC State's university focus behind agriculture. And they're now starting to ask questions in this area, which we welcome. We call it the alchemy of regenerative farming, because what we're basically doing here, and any reviewer or a regenerative farmer is also going through this process, is taking the lead of dirt into the soil gold. It's a transformative, transitional process, and as Greg again touched on in the opening part of the speech, it's all about putting the life force back into the ground, which we've stripped away, whether we've hit them with the plethora of pesticides which are increasingly being used to combat pests that are becoming resistant to the chemical array. And Mother Nature is very smart. We prefer here to dance with Mother Nature, not battle with her, because she will eventually come around and kick our ass. It's as simple as that. We have to wake up to the fact that she's a much more intelligent entity than we are, and not lose sight of the fact that we are from her. We were birthed out of this planet. We don't own it, we don't have dominion over it, the people, the environment, or the animals. We are fellow living beings on this planet. So regenerative agriculture is a belief that basically that if farming is focused on soil health and biodiversity, which is important, which Laura also touched on, then that needs to be allied to what we call a reverence for the environment and all living things. And those living things are a reference to your workforce, your community, and the end consumers. The result of this will be, we're confident, to the level it's now being proved out by research, high quality nutritious food that sustains people. We're not talking about dead calories. Again, Greg touched on the obesity epidemic that's not just sweeping our sweat through this nation. We're pushing 40, 45, 50% levels of obesity. That's obese people who are overeating but at the same time are malnourished. So there's an opportunity now with what we're doing, with what you guys are doing out in the field, to provide this nutrient-dense, phytonutrient-dense crops and food for people out there. It's also the best incentive to transition farmers from conventional to regenerative, because there's an opportunity to make something which very few farmers are able to do these days, which is make a profit. Half of farmers in this country, 55%, have been in debt for at least 10 years, carrying between $250,000 and $500,000 of debt. Highest level of all different things that affect them as well. It's not sustainable. The agriculture system as it stands at the moment is just not sustainable, but as to use again, Greg's reference, Occam's razor is oftentimes the simplest solution is the best, and we feel regenerative organic can provide that. It's also an adage in business that follow the money. Well, at the moment, organic farming accounts for about 1% of USA farmland. Does anybody know how many acres we've got in the USA? How many millions of acres? Hazard a guess? Just shy of 1 billion. It's 900 million acres. So organic farming accounts for 1 million of those acres. Big food companies, so the big food corps, the Nestle's, the Procter & Gamble's, the General Mills, the PepsiCo's, the Walmart's, are awakening to what regenerative is about. And the main reason behind that is that the end consumers, the people who put money in their tills and in their profit bottom line, are starting to ask questions that people who've got grey hair like me haven't done. The baby boomers drove agriculture down the price route. What we're getting with the millennials and the Gen Zs, the much maligned Gen Zs and millennials, they're asking questions about farming and about food that we never did. Where was it farmed? How was it farmed? What are you spraying on it? How are you treating your people? How are you treating your animals? How is it having an effect on the environment? All these questions are driving the big food companies into regenerative, to the point where they've made a commitment already by 2030, that's 6 years away. It's not some point in the distant future, it's 2030, 100 million acres. That will equate to 13% of US farmland. And as they start to realise that what regenerative is about is driving down inputs, so there's more profit to be made, that's going to interest them as well. We have to do business. We have to make a profit in order to sustain farming. It's not something, profit isn't a dirty word, it's how you get to that profit that makes the big difference. And this is what it's going to look like. It's not just, as I said, about a healthful food and a healthful people. We're actually creating an opportunity to carbon capture, regenerative processes, and we'll talk about this more in the land. I'd rather do a show and tell than a talk and tell here. Is about turning what you see with the visual on the left, which is the way that we conventionally farm, bare fields, bare dirt being sprayed, to what it looks like on the right hand side, which is basically, to coin a phrase, a return to Eden. There's an opportunity to put the life force back into the ground and into the crops, and to have biodiversity flood back in. And we'll cover that as we go through it. So I'll finish on this, the alchemy, as I said, of regenerative farming. As Laura said, we're growing a table grape here, not just any table grape. Wait till you taste this, all right? Hands up who's had a muscadine grape in the time. It's got thick skins, it's got seeds. I've termed it the grits of grapes. It's known pretty well in the southeast, but it doesn't crack outside the southeast in small volume. California grow 99% of the seedless table grapes that we eat anywhere on the east coast up to the Midwest. That's 2,500 miles of shipping, diesel and trucking. That's not sustainable. So we've got an opportunity, not just at Union Grove Farm, we're going to be the leaders of this seedless grape. There's an opportunity to blow this out over the 150 acres that we'll be planting in the next 2 years here, and then onwards and upwards. The vision that Greg set, the big goal that he set for all of us, is to move this up to a 1,000 acre vineyard opportunity. That will be the biggest vineyard on the East Coast. But that's just the start. That size of market in California is something that we should be taking, we in the Southeast should be taking a big chunk bite out of. And we're about to do it with a grape that they can't touch. They can't grow this grape in California. It's indigenous to this area. The mother vine, I don't know whether you know that, of muscadine, is out on Roanoke. It's 400 oak, it looks like an oak tree, it's so big, 400 years old. It's the state fruit of this state as well. It's a massive opportunity for North Carolina and the Southeast to do something with this magical fruit. It's also, and you can track this through the research, the king of the superfruits. Nothing touches muscadine for its health quality. The phytonutrients or polyphenols. Have you heard of resveratrol in red wine? This fruit has got over 104 different phytonutrients. There literally isn't a more healthful fruit on the planet than muscadine, and we're about to grow it in a way that's regenerative, which will build up the nutrient quality and build up the phytonutrient quality. The term food as medicine is something that is now starting to sweep across the nation. And what we're doing here is growing medicine. We're growing healthful medicinal food to feed to your families. So our primary focus, whilst we're a table grape operation, our primary focus, which is why Laura's area, which is set up over the last 3 years, has been so important to us, is the health of the soil. That drives everything. You can only do that regeneratively. The minute you put a plough or till into the ground, organic or not organic is phenomenal. I've been an organic consumer for 25 years, but I didn't realise you're not getting the nutrient density because of cutting into the ground. So at that point, you're killing all the biology off that Laura talked about. So a combination of organic with no chemical sprays and regenerative with no till will create the healthiest soil, which will create the healthiest crops. And that eventually will lead to healthy consumers and people. without further anon, it's time to go, folks. So there's going to be a split up.
Just go down one more slide.
Oh,
There we
there
go.
you go. She's on forever again.
Sometimes, and then sometimes not so much. So, we have two buggies out front, and we have a hayride. So,